Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is JC from Team Empire, and today I have another monthly meta for you. This is monthly meta premium for the month of October. I have, I think, 7 events to cover. October is a super busy month for BCS, events left and right. I think there were 2 weekends that had like 3 events split between like NA, EU, and AO, which is super exciting. We are in the height of competitive Vanguard right now. Keep in mind that because of all the events, I may not go over every single deck, and there may be some events where I only go over one deck just to save time, but I highly recommend going to Vanguard Paradox to check out any of the decks that you don't recognize or look at lists that maybe you're interested in, courtesy of Fuzzy Paradox, so shout out to Fuzzy. Without further ado, I just want to jump right into it. We're starting with BCS Netherlands. Here's the top 8 chart. A lot of the decks you see here have been doing well all season, and we've talked about on the channel. And if we go on to the top 4, the winner of this event was Anthony Howe with Chaos. Then there was a Grand Blue list, a Suso list, and then another Chaos list coming in 4th. So for this one, I definitely want to start by talking about the 2nd place Grand Blue list, piloted by Maxime Solemn, who is the who has the channel Solemn Vanguard, which is a very famous Vanguard YouTuber. And here you see this is the 2nd place list piloted by Maxime Solemn. I really want to look at this only because he's a very experienced Grand Blue player, and I think people can learn a lot by looking at what he thinks of Grand Blue in the current format. So you can see there's a lot of one-ofs here, which is obviously very staple of Grand Blue to play one-ofs because of cards like Columbard, but the reason why he's playing so many one-ofs is because he's playing 4 Columbard, which means he sees this format as being very important to play fast and to find exactly what you need. And I think that's accurate to the current format because of history collection. Everyone's experimenting with Superior Stride builds, and Grand Blue is a deck that has benefited greatly from Superior Stride because it has a very strong turn 3 now, where it can draw a lot of cards. You'll also notice some key one-ofs are things like the new V promo, which in Grand Blue it's really good because obviously it's got that top 5 search, which everyone likes, but the first attack is actually really good in Grand Blue, giving you a little bit extra multi-attack either in the early game or in the late game because it's on van or rear. That's really nice. And something that I'm terrified of as a Narukami player, he's playing NPIX. And I think it was in the last video with Lupe I'd said I think NPIX is probably the best card you can run in Grand Blue for that protection because he just has the easiest conditioning in comparison to, say, Connell or Urgula. Not to mention, back row he doesn't really do anything but like other than protect, but that's more than enough, especially since you can end on a board after going through your battle phase with NPIX. Obviously this card is absolutely broken in Grand Blue, grab exactly what you need. And then the G-Zone I actually think is very relevant because in Grand Blue it's very ideal to run a lot of G-Guards since you can recycle them with Greed Shade. But you'll notice here that he's actually running less than some people do. Most people run like 7, he's running 6. He's playing 3 Bad Bounty, which means he's just turboing out this aggression either after Bandit Rum or maybe even on first stride depending on the game state. He's also playing 1 GB8, which is something that it has left a lot of people's builds, but this is basically a free way to just call an entire board and have a really good time. So congrats to Maxime Solemn, really cool list. I really enjoy seeing how he builds around the format. Then we're going to take a brief look at this Suso list, the 3rd place one. What I like about this list is that it has a lot of draw power because it runs the Superior Stride with old Suso, and that lets you basically draw a card. You scry and then add something to your hand. The Stride also lets you do that. You scry and then add something to your hand. And then he plays 2 of, I think her name's Fromage. Yeah, Fromage, which this Battle Sister just lets you on Vanguard Circle, when you place her on Vanguard Circle, draw 2 cards. which is a really good follow-up ride, especially after getting a protect, or even calling it on rear, you can get one card. And a lot of the cards in here we've already covered. The only thing we haven't really talked about is the Mirror Moon engine. This is basically a way to thin a card from your deck, being the Tsukuyomi, and then Tsukuyomi lets you top 5 scry to add something to hand. So it's a really, really cool way to find your ideal ride targets and just, again, get an insane amount of draw power so that cards like Momo and Ichikishima are very impactful. So very cool event. Congrats to these players. Our second event of this month is BCS Malaysia. Here is the top 8 pie chart. Again, a lot of these chunks will look very familiar, especially the Narukami and Link Joker ones. It seems like those two decks are just, it's like those two decks, hard to say. There's a lot of rogue in the meta. Ghidorah has been doing a decent job, but it seems like these two decks might have the most amount of tops, especially Narukami. Then if you look at the top 4, they also convert really well going into top cut. And then of course we have another Malista top. That's just really toxic. We talked about it last video, and hopefully we see some sort of limit or restriction in this week's ban list. There's only one list I really want to talk about from this chart, and it's Raging Form. So if you're unaware, Raging Form is a retrained card in V that is basically all about Superior Ride. You basically have 2 different versions of Raging Form. This one lets you, I think, retire 3 units to Superior Ride. And then this has a strange, locking mechanic that I don't know off the top of my head. But in the G Zone, I can't name all these cards off the top of my head, except for Diablo something. But this card right here is the 2022 Stride that basically copies the ability of your Vanguard, which means it gives you more of a V or D strategy depending on what you're riding. Some people have experimented with Youth Berk for that same reason, but I think Raging Form is just the most solid build to use if you want to capitalize on that stride. So this list just wants to go ham. He's also playing one old copy of Phantom Blaster Diablo? No, Phantom Blaster Dragon something. That's an interesting card. I don't know, this list is really cool. If you have time, I would research this. I'm probably going to look at this later because I don't really know what's going on here, if I'm being completely honest. Then we have BCS Sydney. You'll already notice that Eve, the 2 Bermuda Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle part of the pie chart has taken up 2 slots as opposed to the 1 that it took a while ago. I've actually done some research into this deck since last video, and now we can talk more about it. But everything else on this pie chart is stuff that we have covered in past videos, especially like Suso and Narukami and Ghidorah. And if we look, the top 4, again, Narukami's taking over. It converts very, very well into top tables. A lot of decks just don't really have much of a play around. That's why you see a lot of lists starting to put in the old resist units that Lupe and I were talking about. Unfortunately, we don't have the list, the deck logs for the Eve list, but there's nothing super complicated to learn. Basically, Eve is just an alternative ride target to Malista. So this deck, unfortunately, is all about milling. The main difference is this card has an act skill that lets you look at the top card of your deck, and then you can call it to open rear, and that's not once per turn. So this deck its goal is just to accelerate towards your pieces for the loop. That it involves Mirtoa and that old Forerunner. So again, Bushiroad, just please take care of this. We don't want any sort of, it's not an FTK because that's not how that Vanguard really works, but we don't really need this kind of auto win button in Vanguard. It's just a pain in the neck. Our next event is BCS Vancouver. Now we see some new faces here in the pie chart. That's really nice to see. Large chunk of Narukami again, but in 3 slots we have a Gold, a Kagro, and a Nova Grappler, and that's in that same order: Gurgit, Overlord, and Victor. And then looking at the top 4, again, Narukami converts very well. But in first place, we have Stephen Lee with Victor. And I know that our friend Tony on Team Empire will be really happy to see that. That's his favorite deck to play. And I think that's the only deck he plays right now in Premium. But Don't worry, we're helping him. We're helping him. He's gonna be a premium lover one of these days. And here is Stephen Lee's Victor list. So I think something that's very important to look at when you're looking at any sort of history collection builds with superior stride engine, you want to see the ratios that people play from the old card to the V version, or if they even play any of the V version. And you want to try to deduce why they do certain ratios, right? So for example, Stephen Lee plays 3 of the V Victor and 1 of the G Victor. And as soon as you see that, the first thing I look for is the grade 1s. And sure enough, in his grade 1s, he has 2 copies of the old Arashid, which lets you just immediately search out a Victor into your hand. So he can just grab this. But the thing about Victor is, yes, that superior stride is good, but its ride up into V Victor actually isn't bad. I think there was like 1 or 2 tops from Victor last year because of the rush from this deck. Now, I've said it in the past, this deck does lose hard to defensives. However, it has more tools now with history collection and with like the V promos to where it's able to, you know, output more aggression. Oh, and of course the Zanda, to where you might have an easier time working your way around defensives or heal guardians. G-Zone looks pretty standard. Nothing crazy there. Congrats, Stephen Lee. Next is my favorite pie chart of the month, because I'm biased, and it's from BCS Myanmar. I've heard it pronounced 2 different ways. All 8 slots completely different. Of course, 2 of them are Oracle Think Tank, OTT, but they are 2 different builds. One's Battle Sisters and one's Tsukiyomi. But very cool looking pie chart with 8 different decks. I say I'm biased because there's 2 of the decks that I play on this chart. There's a Eugene and a Yasuie, and I really, really love Yasuie in Premium right now. But we're looking at top 4. Another Nova Grappler first place, but this time it's with Blau. And I've only played against that deck like once or twice, but it's one of those decks that's like, please let me live until turn 4, and then I will just smack you in the face. So congrats first place to the Blau player, and then second place Bermuda or Highlander, third place Grand Blue, and then fourth place Eugene, my boy. All right, so let's look at the Blau list first. Okay, so we're on the Blau list, and Blau is a restanding Vanguard deck, so a little bit different from Victor, where Victor has like a bunch of restands during the main phase and then again in the battle phase. Blau has a more vertically aligned approach where it's trying to restand and re-ride the Vanguard. And then I think there's like some crazy stride. It's this one. Let's see. It's a limit break on a stride, which if you don't know, limit break means that you have at least 4 damage to activate the skill. Counterblast 1, you choose 2 cards from hand and discard them. At the end of battle, this unit attacked. If you have a heart card with Blau in its card name, you can pay the cost, put this card in your G-Zone, choose up to 1 grade 3 with Blau in its card name from your hand, and ride it. Okay, so basically, you attack with this guy, and then your ride target is probably this dude. Blau Cougar from your soul. Actually, I think it's this guy. Yeah, it's this guy, because then, all right, so basically you ride him after your the stride swing, and then superior ride this guy, and he widens your board. So very aggressive deck. I know it's very piece reliant. I actually think this deck is more piece reliant than Victor. Most decks that have like 2 different types of like ride targets through abilities are more piece reliant. But very cool list. Congrats to the Blau player. Sorry I don't know too much about this deck. And then in 4th place, we have my boy, Eugene. And I was very happy to see this because this actually looked very similar to my list pre-history collection because I've been experimenting with some stuff. But if you're like, what the hell does this deck do in Premium? Basically, Eugene, vanilla card. You never use his act skills. The only thing you care about is Oswald, who is a set 7 card that says, at the end of the battle that this unit boosted a Vanguard with Eugene its card name. Your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, and they have no rear guards. You can counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand. choose one of your vanguards, stand it, increase or decrease its crit, and drive to 1 until end turn. So that last condition is very sad, but it's for the sake of premium. That way Eugene isn't broken again. And it was broken at one point, but that's another story. So your whole purpose in this deck is basically survive up until your stride turns. So that way you can restand things like Barakat, who gets +1 drive on attack if your opponent has 3 or more open circles. And then if they have 5 or more open circles, your whole board gets 10k. Then you restand this guy, and then you get another drive, meaning you don't have 1 drive, you have twin drive. So you go from quad drive to twin drive, and your board's gonna get at least 20k. And I say at least because since he says at the end of the battle that he boosted, if on your first attack you hit a stand trigger with Inspire Yell Dragon, you can restand Oswald, and if you have the CB form, you can use it again. So I've actually gotten some pretty cool restanding on this in this deck, and it doesn't always work out because obviously there are some cards that have resist, which is why you decide whether or not to build around it. But you can also play Best Harvest, and essentially if you don't have enough retire pieces, rather than going into Barakat doesn't retire, so you go into Zanbust, and Zanbust lets you retire the whole board, and then Best Harvest let you draw let you draw X being the number that you retired. So cool list. It's kind of a meme-ish build, but it can also just steal wins because, I mean, if you check over trigger, then it's probably not too good for your opponent. All right, our second to last event to talk about is BCS Spain. All right, so again, nothing new on this pie chart. Another large majority of the chart being taken over by Link Joker. I think maybe we look at the data later, depending on how much time I've taken. But I think Link Joker and Narukami are definitely the most converted. People seem to want to stall towards like a greater win con. And Narukami's not much of a control deck, but the longer the game goes on, the harder it's going to be for the opponent to play against it for sure, because of the numbers and the Thunderstrike count. But if we look at the top 4, we have first place Louis. I'm not going to say that last name. Louis with Katrina. So Katrina at the top is really cool. I don't know if we've had a Katrina in first place yet, especially in a pie chart with 3 Link Joker. That's pretty cool. Then Spike Brothers came second, Nubatama came third, and then an Eve came fourth. Yeah, big deal. But I actually want to look at the Katrina list because we've talked about Katrina quite a bit on this channel, simply because Katrina used to be such a boogeyman in premium. So here's the Katrina list, and immediately I noticed this person was not running the Cray Elemental Superior ride, which is fine. That's just a different build. It's got different advantages. One of its biggest disadvantages, though, is that it can easily be played around. You just don't give them damage. But rather than that, they're playing the Superior Stride in the old Asha. And let's find the old, here it is, the old ride target. Basically, this one lets you just copy the name of one of your units, which is kind of like, basically Murakumo. But the advantages that card and Katrina get are that you can call this PG, 2 of this PG, and then bounce them back to your hand. And then your second ride target is Peony, just to call tokens and benefit greatly off of Katrina. This is also another list that has benefited greatly off of the V promo. This V promo just calls a token, but it also lets you find like really, really solid ride targets to fill the board with rush pieces. The only thing I'm surprised about in this list is that they don't play Mushroom. However, since they're playing Asha, it seems like they've decided rather to play this promo Katrina that gives your Vanguard triple drive. That second part probably never really comes up, but however, the first skill says when it's placed on Banner Rear, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and try to find a Katrina. And then if you don't reveal a card, you call a plant token. So cool card, helps you thin the deck, try to find this. This seems like more of a mid-range good stuff build rather than the sweaty like superior riding build. I think that superior ride build was probably better early in the season when Katrina came out, when people didn't know much about the deck. But once you know what the deck does with the superior ride, it's very, very easy to play around it. Then moving on to the last event of this month, this is BCS Vietnam. Another very different looking pie chart. I think some people might get excited to see this fourth of the pie chart, Flagberg, but oops, sorry, no Flagberg, we don't need to see that. But that is probably just Flagberg Colony, so I wouldn't get my hopes up too high, because again, it's just Gridora stuff. And see, first place we have Flagberg Colony, and it is a very interesting strategy compared to just regular Gridora. In fact, why don't we pull it up? So here's the list, and one of the greatest advantages of playing Flagberg in like a Mega Colony Premium build is Inlet Pulse, who is basically just like a great draw engine and a multi-attacking piece if you have Flagberg, because you can play this card in regular Ghidorah. You're just not going to get the insane advantage that you would get from making this your ride target. Also, playing Flagberg means you have access to Persona Ride, which can really help your later turns. This person is also seems to be capitalizing more on the multi-attacking aspect of Flagberg, because they're also playing Tier Knight Eric's, which is just another restanding piece depending on your attack pattern. So yeah, I mean, cool list. I still don't really agree with old Brilliant Blister. That's just on me, I think the rest of this makes sense. Like, this is mandatory. Playing some of these are mandatory, like some sort of grade 3, and the G zone almost never looks different. As long as you're playing Gridora, you have a Gridora deck. The last list I would like to talk about is the 4th placed OTT list, and it's Witches. So this one is pretty sleeper, but Witches is another superior riding deck where you're trying to basically ride this card or put it in the front row rear, and after the first battle of the turn, you can superior ride a grade 3 from your hand. And does it have to be a different name? No, it just says with Witch in its card name. So that's very interesting, because it seems like you generate lots of protects, and then I guess you can re-ride this. I used to play against this deck a lot last year, someone from our locals. Very interesting. Yeah, so it's very aggressive. Plays one of the old Suso. It's kind of like Blau, where you just want to, or Raging Form, where you just keep rewriting. And I'm sure it's got its like really nice scrying pieces too. Anyway, thank y'all so much for watching till the end of the video if you made it this far. October is a very, very busy month. Hopefully we can get this video out the week I recorded it, which I actually recorded it on Halloween. If not, please understand that we are competing in BCS this weekend, or maybe we already have, depending on when you've watched it. But again, thank you for watching. Keep an eye out for more competitive content, and I will see you next time. Bye.